All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Conchetta. I'm the president and co-founder of Wild Ones Delmarva chapter. Wild Ones is a national nonprofit that is focused on building healthy communities through native plants, sustainable landscaping, and connecting people into those. Folks online, I'm going to be moderating at the computer in a few minutes. So if you're having any tech issues, feel free, just let me know through there. Today, we are excited for our presentation, Restoring Maryland's Ecological Capital While Building Climate Resistance with Beavers. Hosted here. Totally fine. So I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Claudia. Claudia Donegan has worked over 36 years throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed as an educator, stream scientist, public policy coordinator, and implementing ecological restoration projects in tidal and non-tidal environments. Presently, she serves as the director of the Center of Habitat Restoration and Conservation in Maryland's Department of Natural Resources, Chesapeake and Coastal Services, spearheading and implementing ecosystem restoration projects throughout the state. Claudia lives in Tunis Mills, Maryland. I will say we have a few through Wild Ones. We've got a few events that are coming up I'd like to highlight quickly. Next Saturday, we have a totally virtual presentation by me called Designing Native Plant Gardens. I do that here pretty frequently at Atkins. But I'm doing it for Wild Ones, co-hosted with the New York Metro Region chapter. Saturday, March 28th, we've got a rewilding pollinator habitat presentation and then lunch social down in Frankfort, Delaware for our Delaware folks at Inland Bay's Garden Center, co-hosted by Story Hill Farm as well. And then Saturday, April 25th, we have a private garden tour for ephemerals. So take a look at our website, delmarva.wildones.org. I'll throw it in the chat. There's also a QR code in the back that goes right to our website. You can find other resources and webinars from our chapter and from our national organization as well. With that, I'll turn it over to Claudia and make sure our tech is actually working.
Excellent. Where's the camera, please?
Here.
Okay, looking at this one?
No, the camera is looking at nothing right now. I've got the camera off. It's just looking at.
And how many people are on this?
I think we've got about 10.
Okay, it's the first time done Zoom plus few live people one. Okay, so you learned a lot last couple of minutes just about my background. And yeah, I moved over here. I was like, I'm gonna retire. Moved to the Eastern Shore. I'm like, nah, I need work. Okay, so now I'm commuting to Annapolis, but I still work with the DNR. I've been here 25 years. And I did work at Montgomery County as a stream scientist, Chesapeake Bay Foundation before that, running a stream education program. So education's always been in there with my geology and stream science background. So if you have any questions as we go through this slideshow is really built to not dumb things down, sort of bring people up. And I tend to do that. It's not always biased, but I think it's worth it. If you see something that's really interesting, I say just raise your hand. This is a discussion, so you don't have to wait to the end and ask questions. And Conchetta, if you could give me like a 5 or 10 minute warning, we do have a lot of slides and we have started. And can you remove these off of here?
Yes.
Thanks. All right, so we're going to go through these bullets today. Believe it or not, we're going to try to hit all of them. But my friend Lucy the beaver over here doesn't look like much. It's a rodent. It's funny looking, big teeth. But I think it's really important that people realize that before we were here, there was a single creature that managed the entire United States landscape, and it was the American beaver. And then in Europe, before they trapped them all out, it was the whatever that beaver's called, Eurasian, blah blah blah. Anyway, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And we're going to talk about some problems with Chesapeake Bay because this animal was extricated or trapped out. Coming back now, understanding the rodent and how he shaped the landscape, the role beavers played in maintaining water quality and creating habitat for a lot of the rare, threatened, endangered plants that you guys probably learned about coming to these things. Most of these plants like swamp pain turtles, like the bog turtle, they all evolved in beaver-dominated ecosystems. Post-colonial, when the colonists came, along with the Indians, they were very helpful getting the beaver off the landscape. You'll learn about that. Promoting restoration techniques, that's what I do for a living. I implement stream and shoreline restoration projects as a job. This is a little side thing, it's beaver stuff. Can you move that off of there, Chesapeake? Or did I do that? Okay, it does all. And I want to talk to you about coexistence strategies and where you can get help for that. A little bit of Beaver one-on-one and how you can help. So let's start out with our favorite friend. Which one of these is the Beaver? E. E, okay. Anybody else want to say any of the other ones? No. All right. Well, guess what? None of them. Beaver. Oh, what's A? Groundhog. What do you think B is? Excellent. C. Excellent. Look at this guy. National Geographic. How about down there, D? Muskrat. Yeah. Platypus. Right. So here's a beaver, and this animal, and you'll see lots of evidence of right outside the door here, is completely evolved from the ecosystem. He's got the flipper feet, and we call it the water whacker, which is his tail. And how many people have had that tail slapped? Scares they walk up and scares people. He's got ears they can plug. He's got swim goggles, mouth axe. These are this is a slide for kids too, but I think it's fun to realize that this animal is so adapted to its ecosystem. The name is Castor canadensis. It's a rodent. It lives in social groups of 2 to 10 people. It lives from 10 to 20 years. There's the predators, and I would put cars on that right now, because they are coming back, and then they change territories and hit on roads. And a lot of roads are the dividing line between watersheds, and so it's a natural point to go up and over. They are very choosy generalists, herbivores. They eat a lot of herbaceous plants. It's not all about trees. They adapt to semi-aquatic life, and they build dams and watches. This picture, actually, I was one of the people that produced this picture in 1989. Is that right? Anyway, it is the first true to color satellite picture ever taken. Back in the old days, it was just red or black. They just picked up heat from satellite photos. This one was a really cool picture too for us at the time. I was at the Bay Foundation, because it took the shot right after a rainstorm on the western shore, 9 hours. You can just see sediment slugging out of DC into the Potomac River and the next river down, and you can see the incredible land use of agriculture on the eastern shore. That's all the white. This was in April, so nothing was planted yet, and you can still see the red, black water and down there, because it produces it's catching so much sediment and decomposing it. Actually is producing so much heat, it didn't even pick up the actual color. But the reason I think this is important is because when fresh meets salt water, something happens in ionization and it just drops out sediment. So this place where you see the sediment dropping out, where the fresh water is meeting the brackish water of the bay, is where all the most important oyster bars were historically, and they just got buried after pre-colonial times when they cut all the trees initially. And I also think it's a cool picture, especially when I'm working with kids. If you squint at it a little bit, what in the human body does this remind you? Lungs. What's that? Lungs. Lungs. Excellent. How about something else? I think it looks like artery system, a heart. And if you have clogged arteries, all of us our age, we know that we want to keep those arteries clean. And it just really shows, that the aquatic systems on the planet are not unlike our artery system, the dendritic system. They work the same way. You want to keep your streams clear, or you got your heart down here called a bay that's going to have which is already happening. Okay, here's another picture. I think this is really interesting. This is in the Severn. This is after a 1-inch rain, and you can see sediment slugging out that river. But look at the land. It's completely covered with trees. It's covered with green. Where's the sediment coming from? And this is the real issue with Chesapeake Bay, is that sediment isn't coming out from underneath those trees. It's coming from the upper river valley. It's legacy sediment. It's sediment that was deposited all along the streams when we first got here, and everyone cut all the trees, and then it really got in there after the mechanization of agriculture, just like 1930. So rainfall mobilizes legacy sediment, not the stuff that you're like, where's all this dirt coming from? It's not coming off my land. It's in the riverbanks, and it's up in the stream beds. So here's a good example of it. When the sediments come down, There are, or when the water comes down, it's a tractor trailer truck for nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. Those chemicals, they don't move on their own. They have to go with sediment molecules, are connected to them. So they get their ride down to the bay. And what happens is that too much of a good thing, it makes that single cell algae just bloom up overnight, then it dies overnight. That plant doesn't live that long. And you immediately have the bacteria eating it up. And as it eats it up, it sucks all the oxygen out of the water column. And that's when you see your big fish die-ups. So it's the short life cycle of the algae and the slug of food for it that causes these fish kills. Here's a stream that we've just restored, 12 feet deep. It's in size. 12 feet of whatever was there is out in the bay. And that, from where that person's standing up 12 feet, that's legacy sediment. That's how much we're talking about. That was deposited on the old wetlands and stream system. That's completely filled up, everything's connected to the floodplain. What did the Atlantic stream? These are some photographs and some images. This is what we think it did look like around here when the beavers were managing the landscape. There was no single thread channel. It was multi-threaded, wetland ecosystem. Water moved very slow through it. It didn't gush through. I mean, a lot of our streams were just like stormwater pipes. And we're trying to go back in and pull those streams up and connect them to the floodplain. Even though that floodplain is legacy sediment, we're working with the system we have. And here's another artist. This art was done based on core samples and looking at the seeds that they were finding, sort of going back to the time of Christ, seeing what the stream valleys really look like. And, it's a pre-settlement riparian land interpreted by using macrofossils in southeast Pennsylvania. This is Piedmont sort of view. Ours over here on the eastern shore is slightly different, but not much. Maybe more hummocks and trees. So Beaver created those ecosystems. Beaver were present this much of the US. I mean, they covered everything. They managed every bit of the landscape. And here's a few things about ecological capital of Beaver. They were providing flood control, nutrient processing, stormwater management, which is something we've created, aquatic habitat. They, like I said, the rare, threatened, endangers. There's a little fish over here. I think it's called blue spotted sunfish or the banded sunfish, very rare. It evolved in beaver dominant ecosystems. So trying to put some of these back, as there may be some still. Temperature control, groundwater, you slow that water down, it spreads out, sinks in, and comes up forward downstream. Recreation, erosion control, aesthetics, environmental education. That's a lot for one weird looking rodent. Okay, so what happened to the beaver? This is really interesting. There's so many good books out about this time in history, but the pelts were a major factor for North American beaver. And you can see the spring of 1632, Henry Fleet returned for beaver pelts along the Potomac River. Charles Hammer cleared both sides of the Potomac River, taking 1,500 pounds of pelts back to the Eastern Shore. That's without the beaver in it. So that's a long 144 pelts as a goodwill offering to the Piscataway. And the Indians really benefited from the beaver trade too. As many as 400 million beaver were estimated to live on the continent now. We have, I believe, it's something between 12 and 24 million. And they're slowly coming back. But if you can imagine that many animals managing the landscape and then they're gone because of the efficiency of the beaver trade. This is a really interesting book. Over a few centuries, the fur trade brought billions of dollars for traders, trappers in North America, but it was particularly profitable for the Indians. One pelt could get 12 accents. And that wasn't the raw pelt. Now this is a new slide. This book came out last year. Anderson Cooper, one of his ancestors was Astor. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, but Astor was the very first American multimillionaire, and he was on a ship coming over here, had like 7 flutes or something in his hand, and he overheard a conversation about the profitability of the beaver trade. Flutes are overboard. He got into the beaver trade, and I mean, he killed it. And then he got into the ground rent stuff in New York City. If you ever seen Gangs in New York, that's all connected to the sky aster. It's weird, is you really don't need and or hear many asters. They didn't make it. generation. So what was he doing with all these beaver pelts? Beavers fur was essentially the very first vortex. I mean, this stuff was extremely waterproof, and humans didn't really have that unless you were Eskimo and some skin on. So this is all the different things, and you know, people really got into this trade. As a comment down here on more one colonists found themselves so deeply in debt for beaver pelts that they mortgaged or had to put up as security large portions of their property. I mean, there is a lot, and this is all in that fur fortune if you want to talk to what went on with this beaver trade. Beaver prices in the 2-year period were 2 to 3 times higher than they had been, whereas tobacco remained relatively stable. You think tobacco was really king, people now beaver pelts king. But you know, you could keep growing back tobacco, but at some point they tracked all of you. So Maryland was no exception. The beaver pelts were traded and sold in the 16 to 1800s, when the beavers basically extirpated from the state. Gone. Not one beaver to be found. And Claiborne, which you guys know, Claiborne is to control people. That was one of the first settlements, and he got along great with the Indians. They had elaborate, large scale, 7,488 pounds of beaver pelt, and 6 years before Kent Island's takeover by Maryland. So this happened, you know, long before this was a state. Those beavers were out. Now, how are we putting this picture together? Like, what do beavers do? There's a couple at Franklin and Marshall who have been studying the impacts of mildews. So as soon as the beavers were gone, colonists really picked up where they left off and getting these sediments built up in the stream valleys by the mill system that was put in. And that was the only electricity, or not electricity, only power. You could just see on this one river, look at all those mills. And in behind each mill is, you know, a big pile of sediment that's stuck. And these historic mill locations all along the Tapsco. So when we go in to do a stream restoration, one thing we look for first is if there was a historically a mill there. We'll have an idea of how much legacy sediment we do. And it just says mills were ubiquitous in the 18th, 19th century, just like beavers. At the same time, the beavers were becoming extirpated, mill dams were being constructed across the landscape. At the same time, the forests were being cleared and farmland. This leads to extensive erosion of upland soils. So then this is basically what a typical stream system looks like now. You've got your legacy sediment sitting on some old wetland beaver dominated ecosystem, some gravel and bedrock. Pretty much every stream you walk into around here on the Western Shore, it's going to have some version of that. And conceptual models linking channel conditions and sediment yield exclusively for modern upland land uses are incomplete for valleys impacted by mill dams. So you have to understand, if we're going to go in and restore these streams, we've got to understand what has been the impact of these past land use practices. Stream beds represent a significant sediment and nutrient source in watersheds where channels are incised, which is what we call them as channels cut down in size from legacy sediment. So that is where all these nutrients are coming into the bed. People are like, where's this coming from? It is coming out of this old, even the little stream bed behind you is chock full of nutrients stored in there first from the beavers and then from the rivers. So this stream is one we just recently restored. You can see that person took this picture way down 7, 8, 10 feet in size channel. That's all legacy sediment. The original stream system, a new paper just came out this week, really interesting, I can send it to you, that in Anne Arundel County, we thought that was where the beavers had lived, at that bottom part, and all this dirt on top. Well, a big science paper just came out. It's actually at another 20 feet under that stream. It is so much. I mean, places that boats came up and delivered people to church in the 1800s, tide is now 2 miles away from that church. Things like that, and that's in also like in Peach Blossom. You know, people used to come up by boat to the little Quaker meeting house, big boats, and now you look back there, you can't see them. There's a stream project just got done. So this is just interesting. It sounds like a good time for beaver to make a comeback. Too bad there are enough. That's our point. Something that Conchetta said. If we pay contractors a lot of money to restore these streams, and they can handle the floods. It's right now when it rains. This is near 97, the intersection of 97 301. When it rains, that thing fills all the way to the top and just gushes, hemorrhages sediment that's loaded with nitrogen and phosphorus right out of that part, right into the headwaters. So, which is the photo that I showed you earlier, the 1/2 inch. This is where it's coming from.
Seven rough.
So, yeah, this is Jebez, which is part of that. This is called Jebez 3. Now, this has been restored. It was very controversial because it's still considered a use 3 trout stream only because of trout. I don't know how long. But we had to fight a lot of battles. Instead of taking the sediment out, we brought sediment in and connected the stream to the floodplain, putting in these sort of rock versions of beaver dams, I would say. And it looks beautiful. If anybody wants to see it, just call me. It's really close to my office. So other people that are helping us understand what the landscape looked like, before colonial contact is Grace Brush. She did a lot of soil samples. Just I don't know that she has anything you can read, but she's like 90 years old. She's like still on the Beaver working group. Amazing professor from Johns Hopkins, and really has gone down. She's the one who showed us what all Maryland looked like 2,000 years ago. How's that? Can you see okay? Okay. So this is again Alan Wall, another scientist who's teaching us about what is, how did we go from here to there? What kind of landscape is the best for our streams or the rivers or the migratory fish? Those little plants and animals that I told you about. She's written really good praise. Messy rivers are healthy rivers. They're not going to be as neat and clean ones. Here's a restoration project on some farm fields. You can see the little ditch and then how to make it more beaver-like and how much more you're slowing that water down, you're spreading it out and you let it sink in and then make the waterway. And that's a restored ag ditch. This is what goes on at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're not around, is that you're in bed and there's a big storm. And this is called the hydrograph. It's like the water's playing, like where that guy was walking in Chavez. Boom, it goes up that high, that spikes the water level and the water speed, and then it comes back down by the time everybody gets up there, like, what happened here? Why aren't there any critters living here? Why? It's because of these spikes. And what beavers do is they flatten that hydrograph out, they slow that water down so you can't get those very those spikes not only are bad for critters that live in the stream, but they're also what is creating that erosive power. And here's some different examples. Our whole job is just to flatten that hydrograph so you're not getting the spikes. When we're restoring the stream, reducing peak flows of moderating discharges possible to restore important ecological functions to lowland channels at tidal boundaries and help control sediment exporting to the bay. That when you see or hear of a local stream restoration project, that's one of the number one goals. So this is a project that we did in the magazines, Cattail Creek. Again, this is process-based stream restoration, so relatively new type of restoration technique. You okay? Content?
Just a second, and
and then, as you can see, this type of restoration is based on restored configuration. It supports sandy hill slopes. We have a lot of sand, sustained, regionally rare, threatened, and endangered communities. We're really trying to get Atlantic white cedar back, plant them a lot in our stream project, and promote better water quality by reducing sedimentation and nutrient mix. Here's the different types of stream restoration. And again, we're just trying to do what the Beavers did. We're like, they did it for free. They did it for thousands and thousands of years. And all these are an attempt to restore the streams and get that water to slow down and sink in different ones. This is a newish one we learned from the people out west, because out west they have no water. So they're trying to slow the water down and hold on to it. So they mimic beaver dams. And they do these hand-built things called beaver dam analogs, which will do like 30 in a stream. And eventually the beavers will be like, you're terrible with this. And they'll come in and rebuild them and they'll make them better. And we see it in all our BDAs except ones where there aren't beavers.
For the natural channel design, first one, isn't that subject to a lot of erosion though when you have a major storm?
The biggest controversy with natural channel design is that you have to wipe out the entire floodplain to recarve the channel. And that upsets everybody because you're taking down, these trees are growing on upland soils because that's what trees do. And those upland soils were deposited there, they're not naturally supposed to be there. So the trees are right up to the edge. We also got townhouse community. And when they come in to do it, they take them all down. It's very controversial. The beaver dam analogs and the regenerative stream, they have the lowest LOD or limit of disturbance. They really don't take very little because the whole project is built in the stream and then they back out as they're coming out, they're putting in the things and reconnecting, and they're backing out. Now, once they bring that water up to the floodplain, those trees are like, what? What's all this water? But they slowly die, and then the woody material falls into the stream, which is really very healthy and natural and sucks up a lot of nutrients. So trees eventually do switch out, like in this quarter, this is Cattail Creek. It's been 8 years, and maybe they had 3 fall, but it does make them not so bad. But we put in a lot of stuff that should be there. So we're just changing plantings. So we learned a lot about this stuff from this guy, Scott McGill. He used to own a company called Ecotone, but he really went out west and hung out with them and learned about beaver dam analogs, and kind of came around and gave us the eye opener that, this animal once controlled the Chesapeake, and how do we take lessons from it? And beavers like the messy stream system. I'm sorry, it's supposed to look like, but this is what it used to look like. Reconnect them to the floodplain, utilize lots of woody material, improve habitat, and establish groundwater storage. This is called process restriction. How are we on time?
30 minutes.
Okay, so again, this is at Smithsonian. That was where the woman was in the stream that was 12 feet deep. That's what it looks like there now. Bishopville, which is on the St. Martin River, behind Ocean City. This was funny because of these fishers guys, their whole career, they've been catching fish at this little dam. And we pulled out the dam, restored the stream going in, and they're like, oh, the fish are gone. It's like, because they got through. They're not just waiting at the base of the dam for you. Yeah, So they're like, whoa, they would get 11,000 in a couple hours of the little glass eels, and then they left 2. They came back the next year. It's because those guys aren't waiting for you, they're going through. So it's informational. And this is Cattail Creek on the magazine. Again, it was an incised stream. We put in a lot of cobble riffles and back the water up. It's basically stone. If there's a lot of flow, it's almost like stone, stone beaver dams. So you can read the different elements of it's great for passing fish and stabilizing, creating oxygen too, because oxygen tumbles over these rocks. Oh, this I just stuck in here. I thought it was interesting that beaver, they just found that the presence of beaver improves bat populations. A whole lot going on with bats. And I thought that was really interesting to study. And wildlife conservation experts that they're finding highlight the beaver's role in keystone. We want them to be a keystone species and recognized as an ecosystem engineer in Maryland. We're going to achieve that. And are naturally protecting, they're creating habitat for bats. This is just what a beaver dam analog looks like. And like I said, you put a bunch of them in, the beaver come up, this is terrible, they'll fix 1 or 2, they take stuff out of one, put it in another. If there aren't beaver there, these don't really last that long, not really worth doing. So we'd like to build that where we know there's beaver present. So a couple of projects. There was no beavers in the last. Or there's way too much flow somewhere. So let's just show you how they work. This is just a little interesting thing that they're finding out west after these huge fires they're having, that the only ecosystem that's green where all the animals go is down in the beaver dominated. It's so saturated that the fire just leaps over. So when it's dry, beavers create amazing landscape resilience, and that is really, the Western people are way past us in protecting beavers and recognizing them as a keystone species. So, what's good about beaver dams? This is just some cute stuff. floodplain connection. This is a book, Beaver and Climate Adaptation. We were really surprised this is Fish and Wildlife Service. And again, you know all this, you're the pros of beavers, you're gonna make all of you guys beaver believers. The snow melt thing is really big out of Colorado right now, that they are just begging for beavers, more beavers, because they're getting so much less snow melt, which they totally depend on for agriculture. And the beavers are anything holding it back and pushing it into the ground. Increased groundwater recharge, which is really kind of an out of sight thing. And they're natural filters. So because of all the stuff that we've learned, and this is pretty recent for Maryland. We've started the Maryland Beaver Working Group, established in 2021. We want to elevate the status of this lowly rodent to be recognized in Maryland's ecosystem. So we just worked with DNR, with wildlife, to try to get beavers in the state wildlife action plan, and it was still hard. It's really been viewed as something you hunt. It's a fur bearer. They're really reluctant to give it the status that we'd like to see, considering that the rest of us in the building are charged with cleaning up the bay.
So along with that, when something is happening in your area because you're up against a road with marsh, and the people complain to the roads wants to hire a trapper to come in and kill them all.
Right.
Because they can't relocate.
Right.
It's what they're told. But
Yeah.
if you had some kind of we'll take all of them you had,
Yeah.
it would give that, but they're hard to lock trap.
Yeah. So there's a few. I had a lot trapper in my presentation last weekend. It was nice to meet him. He works for Beaver. He has that, looks like a big sandwich. And I was explaining to him that, once you you have to live track everything first. And wherever you take it, you have to do a study to make sure there's no other beavers, because they're very territorial. They don't crap out of each other. If one goes into the other's territory, well, we'll just end up trying to get away. So trapping is really important to allow for the live trapping of the movement, because I have tons of people ask me, oh, I want beavers, I want beavers. And it's you can legally do it, Maryland, but it's a pain in the neck, and it isn't. You got to get a permit for it. So there, and I'll talk a little bit about Beaver coexistence strategies, but there's a group called the Beaver Institute, and if you go on their website, they have all kinds of techniques for creating a situation where the beaver gets to stay and the road gets to stay. But right now, we don't have that set up in Maryland financially. Although in Anne County, they collect $96 from each person a year on the tax bill, and that goes to the stormwater fee. And now they're scooping off some of that money, and they're going to have a fund just for beaver coexistence strategies. Beaver are coming back. I mean, I'm 62, and then I never really even saw or talked about a beaver 15 years ago. And it's like a daily phone call. They just really turned the corner. They were extirpated about 100 years ago. They were up in Canada and tucked away in little places here on the Eastern Shore, and now they're moving down into the bay, and they're coming down and going up into the rivers. So they're definitely coming back, but we have to work on it. And one way was to get the state wildlife action plan, which they do every 10 years, to take on beavers, to recognize them as a keystone species, to do a beaver management plan. But we elevated them a little bit, but it was hard. And I worked there. But the Beaver working groups really help, because it's like all those other academia and things. We're going to have a Beaver symposium next fall, so you guys will get my card. So anyway, we already talked about why beavers matter, and skip that one. Again, why beavers matter. This is just for you all. So when you're beaver, this is your elevator pitch. Next time someone's like, I want to trap beavers, any other problem with trapping beavers. As soon as you trap them out, you open the territory, and a whole other group comes in. Financially, it ends up being a whole money suck, because you can't keep other beavers from coming in there. So it's a singular thing. Also, just do the coexistence strategy. Again, why beavers matter. 3 full slides of your elevator pitch. And they store carbon. That's a big one now. Which I forgot to say, when you said Chesapeake Coastal Service, we have a new name. It's called Watershed and Climate Services. So Maryland's really embracing everything that DC doesn't want to deal. I'm like, you think that's a good idea to put climate in our name? But anyway, we got it in there. So reduce nitrogen concentrations, all this stuff you just learned. And so this group, I met them at a conference, and I used to do this presentation with the gal that started. She's an anthropologist. She used to work with monkeys raiding fields in Thailand. And when she decided to come home, she realized in her own backyard there was beaver conflict, human animal conflict. So she started the human beaver coexistence. I always like this. But this is their mission. She sometimes, you know, if a group gives me money, I don't want to get paid thanks to your tax dollars. I'll just have them write a check to this group. With that money, her group can pay up to 50% coexistence strategies. Two main issues with beaver, just mentioned one, is the tree felling and the flooding. And she said, beavers teach us to embrace change. They sure do. And that's what drives everybody crazy. Beavers drives the people crazy. So they put that water in the money. This is a really interesting little diagram about, you know, what makes sense. You know, lethally trapping, relocation, set tree loss. And then for tree trimming, and then also for flooding, the same topics. And as you can see, fencing, painting trees, it's legal, it's humane, it's effective, long-term, short-term, it's affordable. Same with flow devices, legal, humane, effective, short and long-term, and affordable.
Both of them said no for relocation.
Yeah, because of that thing you were talking about, you have to trap the whole family, then you gotta family some.
But it is legal.
It
You
is
just have to jump through a bunch of.
Yeah, you trap, first you gotta get the whole family.
Yeah.
Then you gotta put them somewhere while you're trapping the whole family, that could take who knows. Then they gotta live somewhere, if Atkins had like some side thing where they have her area that beavers could hang out till the family's together. Then you have already found out that where you're putting them doesn't have any other beavers that are gonna run them off the roads. So it's better to learn to try to keep them in place. And sometimes you absolutely cannot do that. You have to try. And you know, there's a lot of safety issues with rodents. So how to wrap trees is very specific on how to wrap trees, simple and easy. And I did this is from the Beaver Coexistence simple thing on trapping trees. It's really the gauge of this where people fail. They do chicken wire and they make it too close, but they don't make it high enough. I mean, look how big what is. You can't just have it this high, you know, because they're just gonna get your favorite tree. So you can see if it's not high, or if the gauge isn't right, but this is like, you know, $14 worth of materials. It's really not expensive. And there's, you know, these steps make a lot of sense to me. So she's run a couple, and this group could do it too, if you want to do a beaver coexistence training on how to properly wrap and maybe put in a device. We could do one for always too short sometimes, so keep that in mind. And then these are more advanced things. These are, they call them beaver deceivers, but apparently the guy who just invented that says we can't say that anymore, of course everything's ignoring him. So they're also called pond levelers. But anyway, you know, you figure out how high you want your pond, and that's where the device either goes through the beaver dam or goes over top of it. And that will be, you know, where that thing goes, either in the middle or the top is going to be the level. And then it
If you go through the beaver device,
Yeah,
they
you
keep it there, they don't like.
Yeah, no, because it comes out and goes downstream. They're feeling pressure in their head. And they're like, oh, the water's leaving, and they're like going around, and they'll usually put as much as they can in the corners here, but they don't really, they're not like, flow engineers. They don't really understand that the water's coming through the big part of the triangle. Or in this case, you've got the intake in that cage, and these things are weighted, and then it comes out downstream. So they're just like, oh, all I want is my pond, because they have to have them for protection from coyotes and other things that they're easy to catch and eat, and they're apparently pretty tasty. And then there's a fence and pipe, and I just saw one the other day I'd never seen before. It's just a section of a stream that's completely caged so that the beaver doesn't dam it up. And there's some really old 200-year-old Atlantic wood cedars with trying to protect there. So it is doesn't even have any.
As long as they can't pull branches through the fencing.
Yeah, that's what that cage, that diameter is all about. Now, there's a course you can take. I'm taking it. It's taking me forever. It's called Beaver Core, and it's an online course, and you become a certified implementer of all these things. And it's actually, I think, a great side job for a critter getter kind of person who's like, I'm feeling bad. I mean, I know they don't feel good about it. Completely trap and kill beavers. This is another way to make money, I feel. And they have a professional trap out there for people that like that.
Totally block the culvert.
Yeah, yeah,
So the county has to get in the culvert.
yeah. I saw
Clear.
one where they went in the culvert and built this wall. And I said, oh, then that water can get through. There's a trickle and like 4 feet of water.
Like that. It's probably our creek.
I'm like, this is actually magnet, but when they have a concrete bottom, it's amazing how efficient they can be.
Well,
stuff.
this is a steel pipe,
Oh, God.
a culvert pipe. That's-
Yeah.
And the
So,
guys were in there in the ice, pulling the
yeah.
limbs out as they're pulling the chain back.
And the beaver. 2
It
hours
was
later,
overnight.
fill the whole bucket.
That's what I do.
They're insanely efficient, but these things work. They amazingly work. You have to go on the Beaver Institute website to get some, you can get the designs and everything.
So Paul, that's one right here, and at least when we leave. we can
Okay.
take a peek.
All right.
I have a question on this, because, I was reading what, Skip and Lyle have done in his research in creating the receiver. And he claimed that creating these double layers is better, so it has a trapezoidal part close to the culvert, and then this fence.
Us a fence around.
Yeah.
Because younger beavers could probably get through. Yeah, he's the one that invented it. So he's the one that wants beaver deceiver to just be through his product.
He trademarked that,
Yeah.
yeah, you can see,
Yeah.
yeah.
We can say whatever.
And
It's too fun to say beaver deceiver, I'm sorry.
I
These are pond levels. And fence and pipe, and there's one other one. So there's a lot of techniques and they all great. So. You know where there's really good one is at Forty Vineyard. There's one at another one. So I've learned a lot because I have a geology degree, from these books. So, and the one I'm reading right now is Beaverland, which is great. And she really, and she really spends a lot of time with trappers, which is good for me, because I don't know the trappers. Except I made friends with one last week, and I mean, the man just wants to make a big quilt for his bed. It's not like, there's no real money in trapping. It's in his family, his grandfather. It's like a family, it's a historic thing. It's wonderful, the whole time too, great conversation. So, and then I said, you need to add this beaver deceiver stuff onto what you do, because you'll find in some places it's better just to charge someone $4,000 or $2,000 for this thing. That for $300. Anyway, and it actually they don't even cost that much. This one's for kids, the second one, once they were hats, the same woman wrote that. Now, that's not like this, right, an easy thing to read, but it's still very interesting and eager. That guy Ben Goldberg, excellent, writing book about travel. And there's some online YouTube's interviews with these people that wrote this too, but I met her at BeaverCon. You guys weren't there. It was in Colorado. 500 people from all over the world last October. She was there. So this is what I love about working with the anthropologists. That we're scientists. We don't really do the best job of educating people. I do a little better than some, but there's a joke at DNR that an extrovert DNR scientist will look at your feet when I'm talking to you. That's an outgoing, but what I liked about this working with human beaver Coexistence is that she paid a cartoonist to make these cute cartoons. And depending if you can take each one, it's open for anybody to use. It's on their website. Each one is a separate cartoon. So like I'll send the tree one with this tree fact sheet from her. They're easier to read than the crap that we produce, because our stuff's too. You can see how I did this science street restoration, whether you wanted to know that or not. I just really liked how she stays focused. And then this county, Anne Arundel County, I told you they're taking some of their stormwater money and putting it into Beaver Coexistence to help landowners to without having to travel. And they have all this online stuff. And I'd really like to see Talbot do that. And this is Caroline, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Caroline's actually pretty good. But I'd love to see all of them take, do some beaver education. They're coming back fast, and this trapping thing is unsustainable. And so I just think the education part, just to get people to understand a little more depth of the animal, to me, it is a road, it is a pain in the neck, but it's also really fascinating, historically important, especially for us, trying to bring back swamp pink and bottle turtles, those little fish I was telling you.
A difficult question, right? I see that there is a hunting season for beavers.
Yeah.
Can you tell more about it?
I mean, they just have, they're a fur bearer. I mean, they're right there with otter and some muskrat. I mean, these animals have been trapped historically for hundreds and hundreds of years, even in Europe, because they had their own beaver that they extirpated. And there was not one to be found, and they just had the first one in London born in 400 years. They got some from Scotland or Russia. That beaver, the only place you could find them was up there, and then bringing them back in Scotland and the UK, and just had the first one born. But my point is the trap is around forever. I don't know anything about it. I know that the critter getters usually trap and then they just inject them something, but the trappers the trap is underwater and it'll drown them. But the problem is in the whole family, and the babies stay inside live in that lodge for 2 years. So it's disruptive.
What becomes of those pellets?
Well, they have these like fur shows. I learned a lot from that book, Beaverland.
That's really
Yeah, they have. Yeah, well, some people, I mean, honestly, somebody gave me one.
I mean,
that thing.
Inuit Indians, it was
Yeah.
their clothing.
Instead of cast test.
Right.
Oh, yeah, the kid that I met last weekend, he's making a big, king size bed cover thing made out of beaver pellet. That's his goal.
Yeah.
But he's $20 a pellet, between 10 and 20, and it's not gonna be helpful. I know a lot of Marylanders that have side jobs, they grow oysters and do this and that, put their kids through college. This beaver trapping is a part of the family legacy.
Yes.
Fur bearing trapping is a part of their history, and they go to shows and how well treated that. People go like that. And then there's a beautiful one, and they bid on them. I mean, it's a thing. I learned about it that book. And yeah, and it's been a thing.
So you said that they're very territorial, you can't move them in.
You can't, you just have to make sure they're
Right, but when they have their kids.
Okay.
And the kids move out, do they extend family lodges? We have, and we're from Delaware, central Delaware, on the Indian River watershed.
Yeah.
And we had, at one point in time on this bridge that connects our 2 developments, over Betts Pond, we had 5 beaver houses. And they just kept getting, there were like 2 small ones, and then the other 3 kept getting bigger and bigger, bigger. And then the last time we walked, there were only 3 of them. Now,
Yeah.
did Denver come in and remove 2 of them, or did they?
That's all their rules. It probably,
Did the beavers take them apart?
beavers come and go, even
How many
when
houses?
everything's
One
like,
family,
yeah, like
these were close, like within
yeah,
this room.
yeah, and then, but the males gotta find other females, sisters, so they need to go out, and they go over a road, so late at night and make it sundown. But they gotta roll, they can't stay there, they have to move, and if the family thing maxed out, and it's really food. It isn't about your waterway, it's food, and if there isn't enough alder and willow and herbaceous plants, they're out. And that's why we try to build restoration projects. They used to track them all the time out of our Bay restoration projects because they were eating the $40,000 worth of swango trees that we got from one of these nurseries here. And so now we're just trying to plant so much more for them and protect our trees better. That we, you don't have to have 100 trees to buy, but
Will they make one family can make multiple houses like that though?
yeah, I think they can disperse though because of the food thing. Food's huge and they're big. And so there's tons of them living that don't ever build a lodge or a dam because if they're in your river like Amico or down on the bay, if they could just, I saw one recently, just pulled out some rocks, somebody's revetment and made a whole lodge in there. He doesn't, they don't have to build dams, water lodges, that's all for protection. And the food is really nice up in the watersheds, better than on the bays. So that's again why they're coming up, it's all that food.
So you say the young stay for 2 years, so they still have more young every year.
Yeah, they help take care of the young, so when those parents are doing, knowing those road engineers at night, there's young problem watching the young in the lodge.
So there's a lot of them. There can be like 10, 12, 14 of them in each lodge.
Yeah, along with some other crazy stuff, there's a nature show that had a camera in the lodge in the winter, it was one of like Massachusetts. Now, there was a family of muskrats in there, there was a family of frogs in there, there was some other, they were all jumping in front of the mud screen, I was like, that's a muskrat, there's the baby beaver, there's some frogs jumping around there, I mean, they built that lodge, man, there's a whole bunch of things living in there. I crack me up. Again, they are ecosystem engineers. They provide so much. Anyway, counties, I really love this. In Ronald County, it's they have 2 full-time staff just on Beaver issues. Oh, is that it? That might be it. I thought I meant it. Oh, here we go. This is my last slide. And so what can you do? Like I said, I hope you guys are all Beaver believers now. You can get email, say being an ecosystem engineer. But we'll do our best, either with coexistence strategies, education outreach. And then I really think it's important. There's also a sand paint that you can put on the tree, it's not that hard, that they recommend in the Beaver Institute. And you can get the color of the tree, it doesn't have to be that weird white stuff. See some. Anyway, Allison Sack is the one that has the funds, they give you 50%. I have a lot of educational material, can talk to your group, and sometimes we do stuff together. And like I said, this is gonna get solid overnight. They are putting that in the system pretty quick. We want to embrace them. We have a lot of things motivated to do, and they do a much better job to do. Like I said, creating these ecosystems that we cherish for a lot of our very threatened endangered species. So that's my talk. Any questions?
From whom do you get?
We don't have an official beaver issue topic in our wildlife program. We have a fur bear biologist and he's at BeaverCon. I mean, we got him to go to some of the stuff he's learning. He's young, but he really did get trained by old time scientists. And so it's like the difference between like Jen Woods, if anybody knows her, so tree hugger, and a forest. You know, they're always not going to see eye to eye. One's old growth forest, the other one's like different chairs. So it's you're always going to, because there's really good points on both sides. We also get pushed back from counties that don't have time for this or consistent stuff. They're like, get that thing open, get that water through there. The challenge that I think they're going to start seeing is that they're going to be constantly going in that same culvert unless they put the pipes through it and do those things. And the people that train you on that, and it's online training now, say it's like once a year meetings. Go down there once a year, get everything, put another stronger pole, and this sticks off. It's much better than having it.
But they will push to trap them out and kill them and clear the pipelines to get rid of the beaver because the neighbors are complaining that the water's gonna wash the road.
Yeah, it's not the long.
So it's a double edge that's happening. You got neighbors complaining because they want the water gone. And the counties pay the trapper because it's cheaper than doing the.
Yeah, it's actually not cheaper.
Yeah, but they've got a guy with a backhoe that's throwing a chain through, so it's.
Yeah. It's not cheaper to trap than it is to do coexistence in the long term.
In the long.
The point here is that they will know. You guys know. It's like Plato's allegory of the cave. You might have been in the cave about what beavers do and how you can coexist with them, but now you're out. And you have to go back and tell some guy, road trapper that works for the county road crew, there's a different way. And that's the change. And it can be done. We do it all the time. I mean, how many people told our parents to stop smoking or start smoking or whatever? Humans are constantly teaching each other what to do. It is just, it's more. And that's why I'm here. It's Saturday. I'm state employee, but I find it very important to be here. Any other questions?
You did have on walking,
It's that.
signal. Basically, someone asked, how do we know when it's time to intervene on a landscape, to restore a landscape? How much is just nature keeping its course? I know there's a lot of, this person brought up a natural landslide of an area that had beaver in it, and so we restore it back. We let beavers take it to be put new beaver in. We chalk it up to nature, we chalk it up to keeping climate change, we should intervene. How are those?
I mean, I think rivers will heal themselves, everything will heal themselves if you have like rivers. I mean, it took us 300 years to do all the problems that we see, the way the bay slugs in that sediment. It took a long time to change the landscape, and it's gonna take a long time for it to heal on its own. That's why we budget to do some shovel-ready stream restoration, shoreline projects, because, kind of don't have the time. We got to get these ecosystems rolling again before we lose a lot more species. So I think that's a really good question. It's almost philosophical.
That's what I said.
But it is a question that, do we have 400 years for the stream to fix itself? Are we gonna go in there and put some beaver dam analogs and slow that water down, push it back on the floodplain and quit melting up to the edge? And attract. Now, we just did a big project on the gunpowder. It's a very controversial project because fisheries people who their timeframes are shorter, they, the beaver dam analogs heated the stream up. They made it, they're seeing changes in the bug assemblages, and we're trying to recreate this whole ecosystem. It's going to take a while. Can't do it 2-4 year period to get the mature marsh and the mature riparian system back up. So it was an old concept.
Why would a beaver alternative keep the stream up? I thought it would cool it because it would cool it.
It does cool it, but if you pond water, pond it in August 10th, and that's when they measure water temperature, stressful time. It will be warmer than the stream that was there 3 years ago that was just flowing through it, 3 inches deep. Now you've got 6 feet of water, and their loggers are in there, and they're in the hottest time of year, and they're going to measure hot water. But what's also happening is the piezometer, like if they put that's groundwater measuring, it's pushing water out, it's going down, and it's coming out downstream cooler, but that's a monitor there. So.
Are any of those, is there a satellite maps?
No, there aren't that many, and we want that. And that's part of getting the beavers recognized as keystone species and through the Maryland DNR wildlife is that we need a beaver management plan. We got to do an inventory. They do it for every other animal. I mean, they know a lot of where, they map all the deer in Montgomery County. It's not done yet, but I feel like if enough people say, I'd rather you guys teach, manage and work with beavers with my tax dollars. I could see the public pushing the way they did for Sonia. It's like oysters. No, yeah, nobody ever cared about oysters and weird rock on the bottom of the bay. I mean, we had to elevate oysters through our work at the Bay Foundation and with everybody through the 1980s and make them a keystone. But see, oysters are at the bottom of the pipe and the beaver at the top. I really think they're equivalent. So we know where every oyster is. Didn't used to. Any other questions?
I think another way to help would be if a roads department had to report to DNR that they were going to eradicate, that there should be some kind of a study done to see if they can coexist.
Give us a minute. Yeah, plus there's money for that.
I mean, that was our situation. I mean, they wouldn't come in and kill them all because they didn't want to come down with 3rd or 4th time to get a fight.
Yeah, but DNR, because I call it DNR, they said if they kill them and take them away, more will come.
Yeah.
It might have been you. We were talking.
Maybe, but I mean, we don't have authority, and the county authority is important. And you can just do that on county level because there's money for the coexistence stuff. There's people that are actually, I know like 6 people are looking to put projects in. So you do Beaver Corps, which I'm terrible at. But all these other youngsters are like, I just don't really in there, but I took the training so I could get my 12 stats to it. I'm taking the training, but there at the very end, you have to put in 40 places. There's like 12 people in the state of Maryland are trying to find projects. They'll put them in and pay for them because they can't get their certification until they do full projects.
Oh, we got a project.
Yeah,
So that's great. I got a girl from Canal Trust who's looking, a forester from downstairs who's looking. So if you got a project, they will come evaluate it and, yeah, because they need to do it for their certification.
And how do we contact them?
Just reach out to me. Okay, I got my card is up there and this, when you guys go out, today. Sorry, this is the rubber version of Beaver Shed. Do not ask me why I have this. I went to BeaverCon and I found it in my bag after the happy hour. So I can say that. That's what I want to be, but now I'm lost this exhibit. And, when you go outside, you see tons of these in the water. I think they need great places. Plus, I think they're gorgeous. And I'm telling you, 10 years from now, QVC, you're gonna see herbs hanging from the beaver chew would be $30. If this is one my cards are over here, and fact sheet just on. I didn't bring any, but there are plenty of fact sheets for the beaver seed. I can just send it to you. This quick thing on the trees. Trees are the biggest deal for most of them. What I get complaints, people have these trees in their whole lives. And where did this beaver come from? And that's what I'm telling you, they are coming in.
We like the beaver.
you can plant all the trees along the bank you want for ours, because we don't want them.
Yeah, and they like herbaceous stuff too. So you take some willows and stuff in there. They really want to eat willows. They don't, I mean, yeah, they'll do the tree thing, something that's gonna, but they're basically felling to get the leaves, and then they take the leaves from the top. They pull them underwater right outside their thing, and that way no coyote or whatever can get them in the middle of the winter. They make these storage areas. I'm sure we'll see a food storage area out here. And that just makes it, they can eat and pull it in the lodge and get it all done. So yeah, think of herbaceous stuff, grasses and alders and willows. Just stick a bunch of willows in there and then they will stay with trees. Not 100%.
They can have the trees.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, everybody.